Hello again, I'm Doug Smith. This is another edition of Portsmouth This Week, the voice of Portsmouth Town Hall. Today's guest is Bill Clark, our Director of Business Development. Welcome back to the show, Bill. You've been on here several times.
Yes, Doug, thank you.
I think maybe some background for the folks at home about what the functions are of the Portsmouth Business Director and how long we've had that position in Portsmouth. A little bit of background.
Certainly. 12 years ago, well, actually it's coming up on 13 this next February, through the initiative of the Town Economic Development Committee, they advocated for a position of some sort that would be an outreach to the business community. What really drove it was they were looking at the shrinking commercial tax base in town. And not that we lost any great number of businesses, but just the way the values change for residential versus commercial, so that what used to be around 22% of the base as business and commercial shrunk down to around 10%, 9%. So that was part of the initiative and the driver behind it, to build the commercial tax base, which is so valuable to the town revenue stream. So they advertised for a position, and I got selected. It's a part-time position. I'm not an employee, as a contract, and the council has seen fit to renew it now for 12 years in a row. So I've been fortunate that way. I think much of it, people think we got somebody in position to try and grow the tax base, so who are we recruiting, what are we doing? But so much of the activity hasn't centered on direct recruiting, and it isn't exactly how we would go about with a large company perhaps coming here. But it's more an outreach to the business community, somebody that's there to advocate for people that are looking for help. Anybody that comes to town, say to start an application in one of our zoning or planning board, has a place to come to the office. Who do I talk to? Who can I introduce them to? What things might they want to prepare themselves for in that? And then also just people coming and asking questions about, one of the biggest questions we get is, what do I have to do to start a business in town?
Sure.
And we don't have as such a business license that everybody has to have, other than a few things that are controlled by the state for health purposes and safety purposes and things. Most of them don't need a specific Portsmouth business license of any kind. So that many people come and ask that question, and most of them are just perhaps starting a new business. So with that question, we can direct them perhaps to the Secretary of State's site, where there's a lot of startup information for them. Well, how do they go about getting themselves established? Who do they talk to? What things do they have to prepare for?
Okay, so you're essentially like a one-stop shopping place for people who are interested in looking into this.
Yes, we'd like it as a place perhaps to start, and then we can introduce them to the people maybe that they need to reach out to, or to get the help to get them started.
Yeah. Do you also coordinate or collaborate with your counterparts in the other communities, Newport?
Not that much directly, no. I see them from time to time, and on a couple of occasions we've had things we collaborated on for the state enterprise zone. We're fortunate to have an enterprise zone, and Portsmouth, and Middletown and Newport have the legislative approval to have an enterprise zone, but they've never enacted it, so there have been some contact there. However, in the very near future, you may see more collaboration between the towns. The initiative that the Chamber has embarked on for a regional economic development, either office or position, is starting to move forward. We had a meeting just Wednesday of this week with a consultant who's now drafting the format, the structure for such a position, where the funding might come from, what the job would consist of, and who all would be involved.
Okay, this would be the Newport County Chamber of Commerce kind of pulling everything together.
Yes, that's what drove it, and the Chamber got the funds that put us in this position where we can start the study and hire the consultant and get that activity started. So where it's going to go is anybody's guess, but it has a lot of benefits to it. I think the philosophy behind it is that what goes on in Portsmouth may affect Newport, and does, and certainly what goes on in Middletown or Newport can affect us.
Yeah.
So many of our people live here but work there, and vice versa. And we've got things that the whole region could benefit by, and as do those towns also.
Yeah, I think of the marine trade specifically as something
Exactly.
that crosses all the whole island.
Exactly, and I think there's going to be some new initiatives in the future that the state is behind. The Commerce RI is very much behind taking advantage of what goes on at Newark and in the defense industry around here,
Yeah.
to focus on this area being, they've sort of termed it like the Silicon Valley of the sea.
Yeah.
That what goes on here has so many different technical things that can be enhanced and developed, and the synergy that could come from it could benefit the whole region.
Yeah. I think that innovation hub down in Newport is really exciting, and it'd be great for kids to come up with good jobs, good careers in
Very
some of
definitely,
these
yeah.
technical fields.
Very definitely.
I remember a couple years ago, a major complaint by businesses coming to town has always been, as you say, the permitting process and the complexity and the length. And
Yes.
the difficulty getting appointments, et cetera. A few years ago, I know you spearheaded an effort to streamline the permitting process here in town. How did that work out?
Yes, that probably goes back, I guess, now about 5-6 years. And it was about, with myself and the Economic Development Committee, we put together a 6-page letter we handed to the council. And they chewed it over for a night or so, but it mostly got set aside. But beyond that, then, we went directly to the planning board,
Right.
and we also went to the zoning board. And to say we had a lot of success would certainly be very much misleading. The planning board is pretty much comfortable in what they're doing and don't think they have to be tailored or different. But in my view, I think I spent 18 years before this job in the various cities and towns around New England, and before planning boards and zoning boards. And everything in that activity where you go and get permits or try and build something always starts with the planning department. But that's not the case in Portsmouth.
Well, that was going to be another question I had, was how do you relate to the town planner?
Well, the town planner and I worked closely with both Gary Crosby and his predecessor, the person that preceded him. There's many things that he has questions about that people come to him naturally from an economic development situation. And myself also, if I get a call and somebody has an interest in something, I certainly bounce it off Gary. And the same goes with the building inspector. The three of us sort of collaborate on some of these topics that people bring up.
Yeah.
But I think, as I just started to say, the planning process, I think, is so different here. And as I say, the planning board wasn't willing to change. We did get them to change the dates of when the planning board and the zoning board meet, so that there's a bigger gap between the two meetings. And there's some cases in the past where if you had to go to the planning board first and then the zoning board, that you almost had to create 2 months out of it instead of going from one to the next within the same month. Now, we did have some luck at the zoning board. They looked at some of the things that are duplications, some of the things that could speed up their process, and there have been some changes made there. But nothing really drastic, and I know from time to time I get questions about that. Should we be doing something about the zoning? Is it difficult?
Yeah.
Difficult position, but I know the town wants to protect and wants to have the final say.
Yeah, I understand that. I just think that it's something that is left, it's a continuing issue probably that you probably want to deal with. A quick question before we get to the next one is, do you have counterparts in Middletown and Newport?
Middletown does not have a person that focuses just on the business activity. It all falls to the town planner.
Okay.
Newport now does have one. They've had one now for about 2 years, and before that it was mostly the planning director, and then for another period of time they had a part-time position.
Okay.
But there isn't.
But they also have the Newport Tourism Council or whatever it is
Yes.
down there as well.
Yeah.
How about Bristol and Tiverton? Do they have?
They do not. They do
Wow.
not. Tiverton, in fact, is just struggling with even getting a planner, which is a really big step for them.
So in this case, at least, we're kind of ahead of the power curve.
Well,
which is a good thing.
I think there's been some benefits, and I think the business community appreciates it. Things that go on, and they can call the office for information. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, one of our small tech companies over in the business park, A2B Tracking, they're experts in electronic barcode scanning and RFID technology. They've been doing a lot of work with the military, and they've got some new contracts they're working on weapons tracking. So they asked me about making contact with our police department, and Chief Lee was more than happy to cooperate.
For security issues and things like that?
Yes, and so that they're going to be testing in our police department with their weapons as to where weapons could be, where these tracking devices and the identification pieces that the radio signals track and respond to, where's the best place to they can be placed. So the police department is going to be helping them in their research, and it's that type of thing that we can.
So you're able to pull all these things together. One of the things that has come out in the news within the last week or so, I guess, was that Greenvale Vineyard, our 375th vineyard, official vineyard, has been denied permission to hold weddings on their property.
Yes.
And I just wondered, how will this ruling affect other farms in Portsmouth that host public events like Louis Escobar's farm? Good
question. I hope it doesn't affect them anyway negatively.
I mean, he's been doing that for years.
Absolutely, as has Greenvale.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sad part of this episode that we've gone through that Greenvale has gone through. And I think it's unfortunate that the people that started objecting to the activity made the issue of it. Now, granted, the activity of a wedding in a residential area is contrary to
well, but it's a farm. I think I don't know what
agreed,
it's
zoned as, and we've seen through the years the transition to the activities at farms. I mean, Sweetberry Farm over in Middletown is a great example.
Absolutely.
You know, and the things that the farming industry needs. So the whole Greenvale thing, I think, got ahead of them. It was started really by a meeting that the Greenvale people had when they were thinking of putting up a new tasting stand and a farm stand near Wapping Road.
Yeah.
And I happened to be at that meeting since it's near my neighborhood. And most of the people who attended there, the neighbors, weren't even aware of the activity or certainly the extent of it that went on down there. And this thing just snowballed and snowballed, and it is where it is today. And I think it's really unfortunate.
Well, I think it's really sad because that's a big chunk of their income. And
no doubt.
Farms are probably really difficult, even vineyards, to keep up.
And I think the town demonstrated that the activity has gone on virtually without any incidents. I know they've talked to the police department, the fire departments, and everybody else, so that downside, but the people have a strict interpretation of what should and shouldn't be, so that's what we're stuck with.
I think the problem is, one of the problems would be that this ruling that we just had about the Greenvale kind of implies that we're anti-business here in Portsmouth, because how do you interpret this, and you think this will have an impact on other businesses looking to relocate here?
Well, I think it sets a tone that we don't want people to, automatically say they're anti-business. For instance, I think the incident about or the activity about 7 years ago now, we had the Target issue.
Yeah.
That got soundly run out of town. But I think one of the things that may have helped the town for the future is if we'd let the process proceed a little bit, so that we learned a little bit more about what can a developer do, how can we work with them, how can maybe they bring us something that we want, rather than just saying no, no, no. And that's the image we don't want to have, is that we're just saying no, but we want to say, okay, let's take a good look at it, evaluate it. Are there pluses and minuses? Certainly, in most of these projects, especially something the size of Target, there would definitely be some pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
But we didn't really get a chance to vet it, to dig down and see what might be some benefits in the town for having it, or how we could accept it in the town under our terms.
Yeah, well, I guess one of the problems here, I don't think the Target episode and the Greenvale things are even equivalent, because many communities are doing whatever they can to support farm activity, to try to keep this open space. Is there any possibility that down the road that this could be revisited by maybe changes in the zoning laws?
I think there could be a way, and I think some of this will be addressed in the revision we're doing with the comp plan. There's some issues like
Okay,
that.
well,
I think
that's going to be another question,
focused on.
yeah.
Yes.
Because I think many folks would like to, we want to keep Greenville here. And
Absolutely.
a real community asset.
And maybe build some of the other farms into activities like that. You know?
Absolutely. What's been done in the past year, let's say, just to give a time frame to encourage businesses to come to Portsmouth?
Good question. One of the things that we have a little better handle on now with the introduction a year ago of our new town website. One of the pages within my department on the website is for properties available in town. And in the past it had been very cumbersome to keep that current and to get the participation of realtors and brokers that had property, or property owners that had property they wanted to sell, to keep it current. So it wasn't a good source. Now I can do that very quickly with some few keystrokes and keep it current. So I've been in touch with the realtors and the brokers, keep me up to date, keep me posted what can be done like that. So that it becomes a good resource, and you can hand it to somebody and say, here's what's available in the town, and it can be quite current and have a good amount of information. Yeah. As a result, we're getting more listings and more activity from the brokers and the realtors and landlords themselves.
Yeah, that's great.
Some of the other things we've done is at least once a year and sometimes twice a year, when the what was Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation is now Commerce RI, and the Secretary of State has the business expos. I've had a booth there for the town where we make an outreach, let people know about what some of the projects that are going on in town might be, where some property might be for future development, if this can strike the right connection with people that are looking around and seeking information at these expos, and just letting people know that there's things going on in Portsmouth besides the farms. And
I've always thought that our motto should be Portsmouth, where you live, as it compared to Newport, where you play. You know, something like that. We need something like that, I think, to be able to advertise how beautiful this town is. Our friend Tina Dolan's left the Aquidneck Island Planning Commission, and what's going on with that organization? Are we still working with them?
Well, they have a new director, Sarah Atkins, and I don't think it's been as visible. I mean, obviously, as from the onset when the AIPC was created, it all was a result of the concentration of information for the West Side Master Plan. The West Side Master Plan is there, but it's not something that is dictated to kick in, or these are the steps you take and suddenly we're going to have the plan formalized and become a reality. It's focused on where we would, the focus will be on what we do with the Navy lands, really. And we have a big piece of that, the 140 acres we've got of the old Navy tank farms. The PRA, our local Portsmouth Redevelopment Agency, has been looking at that, working the issue.
That's right on either side of Burma Road, on the Portsmouth side, or is it further?
It's mostly, if you go down Stringham Road,
right.
It's the land to the north.
To the north.
To the north, when you get down just at the bottom of the hill where the Melville Marine activity is.
Okay.
Everything beyond between the campground and Melville, pretty much, without bidding.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the status of all this? And I noticed that Newport and Middletown seem to be making active bids for parts of the Navy property. What are we doing?
Well, I think Newport and especially Middletown's pieces are much simpler. For one thing, they're not as large. For another thing, they're not as encumbered with the environmental cleanup that is going to be necessary in our tank farms. So that in itself just presents a very big barrier and something that's very difficult to work around. But the town has had the PRA for, what now, 7 years? And I think there's some concern as to what their role really will be down in the future. I would really like to see our PRA fully empowered, working independently, pretty much, of the town council. Now, I know there was some pushback when this topic came up some years ago. Well, will the council have final say over what goes in down the tank farms? I think they can have an awful lot to say, but I think we've got to let the PRA have the authority to start working on our behalf. I mean, much like the planning board does. The planning board accepts applications from projects in town, and a project can move through the correct procedures and not be involved with the town council at all. They don't have to go to the council. That's what the planning board is charged with. And that's what the PRA should be charged with. Not that every little step the PRA would do would have to be touched back to the council. As I say, they're certainly going to be involved in what's going on. The PRA wouldn't be working in a vacuum. But we're going to have to really let them take this thing and run with it and get the best usage out of it that we can.
Okay, now the PRA, Portsmouth Redevelopment Agency, were these members of that all appointed?
Yes.
By the council?
Yes, they are.
How many members are there on the PRA?
I believe there are 5 now, but at one time there were 7. I think the 5 seems to be workable. But,
okay.
The council has the means to dissolve it, as well as appoint new people. They come up for renewal, so the council has, a say in who's going to be. Is there any
maximum number or anything, or just?
I don't think so. I think a lot of that would be, well, we could always change the legislation, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because the PRA was created through legislation that we ask our local legislators to introduce for those purposes.
To provide an executive agency for the town.
Absolutely.
To go forward.
And we have to let them say, here's your job. Yeah. Now go do it.
Absolutely. We're talking about the town planner a few minutes ago. I just wondered about he's almost always in the middle of revising or updating the Portsmouth Comprehensive Community Plan. How do you relate to that as it sort of pertains to business development?
Well, Gary and I do spend a lot of time noodling over some of the things. He has a part-time assistant who's working on it, Mike Asciola, and Mike's developing an awful lot of the background information, a lot of the data that would be going into, and giving a format and structure for the plan. I think sometime maybe later this spring, into the summer, there'll be some workshops that Gary will conduct, so that everybody can have a chance to vet it.
In different functional areas?
Absolutely. I know he's been in touch with the Agriculture Committee, which is going to be a big role of it. The Town Economic Development Committee submitted material to Gary on some mission statements and some initiatives that they'd like to see endorsed, so that there's going to be an awful lot done along that line. And while we're talking about that, there's some other things going on that could impact the comp plan. This project that the statewide planning has been working on for the better part of the last 3 years is Roadmap RI. And just this current week, there's getting some pushback in the news from a couple of citizens groups that they think the state may be overstepping their bounds. And it's going to be interesting to see where that comes out.
Now, where can we find out more information about that?
Statewide planning, and the project is Roadmap RI. There are separate websites for both statewide planning.
So you can Google it.
Absolutely, Roadmap RI. I think we should know a lot about it. As I say, it's the result of about a $2 million project that the state funded for this purpose, and it's supposed to lay out the future of what Rhode Island will look like, where we will make initiatives, where we'd like to focus new developments and things. Now, one of the criticisms I had from the beginning is that they had various workshops at the beginning, and they have workshops on housing, they have workshops on open space, and they talk about economic development, but they never had really specific economic development workshops. And so that you go to these individual charrettes they had as they were vetting this thing and running it around the state, having people take a look at the mapping and everything, and it just, nothing of concrete in there, just saying, okay, everybody wants some jobs, everybody wants to create some new development. We need new development in the state.
Get there, yeah.
But let's get some meat in this thing as to how we're really going to attract.
Now, you would be representing the town at things like that?
Well, that was really open to the public. Gary Crosby attended, the people from the EDC attended, different councilmen attended these charrettes. And we had a chance to look at the maps and the way that something was being created.
So there has been an opportunity to provide some input.
In defense of the state. They have not been operating in a vacuum by any means. Yeah. But the thing is getting close now to being this grandiose endorsement, I think, by the state, and some of the people are starting to question it. Now, I think maybe one of the citizens groups are making a little more out of some of these issues than need be the scare tactic. But I think it is, again, something that the state and everybody should be looking at very closely, because it's going to be a dictate for the future.
And we're such a small state compared to everybody else.
Correct.
You know, so
right.
we've got to really look at this stuff. Speaking of the state, though, and you mentioned the newly formed Rhode Island Commerce Department, which used to be RIDEC.
Yes.
Can we expect any help from them in business development?
Good question. We've had good relations with them when they were RIEDC, and really for the most part it's really just a change in the name.
Yeah.
I think they're waiting on to see what the legislature might do about redirecting them.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking of things like grants for certain projects or something. I don't know.
Well, there will be this large. We touched on the initiative about focusing on all the technology that might come out of our Newark activity. The Commerce RI is I believe going to be getting a grant from the Office of Economic Development of a couple $1 million to focus on exactly that thing.
Okay.
And something like that should be beneficial to our area. Commerce RI is doing the hand-holding and shepherding our backyard project down at Melville with these 32 acres, which have been waiting and waiting. And they keep saying it's close, but
yeah, I know. And what's going to happen in my lifetime?
I know. A good question. We've been waiting, and as have been the marine industry also. So, but everybody, even the marine industry, says it's close now. So that's a good sign.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one.
I think so.
You know, we have two great universities here: Salve Regina University in Newport, and also Roger Williams University, which actually has a footprint in Portsmouth as well.
Yes.
Both of these universities sometimes are interested in internships for some of their students.
Right.
And they also seem to offer kind of a think tank-like capability. I just wondered, are we taking advantage of these at all?
My office
what can you do
specifically hasn't, but the interns that are available through both Roger Williams and Salve and Johnson & Wales before the SBDC role changed have been utilized through what we call the Small Business Development Centers. These are reps of the SBA who offer free business counseling to any business that wants it. We'll sit down, critique your business plan. They're especially helpful.
Yeah.
Back to when I was saying about new people that come to town looking for help to start a business. Many of them I direct to the SBDC because there's a good asset and a good resource that can help them with their business plan. If they're going for financing, help them how they get structured and make the presentation for the financing.
Now, this is over in Bristol, the SBDC?
The SBDC now is being coordinated through URI.
Okay.
It had been through Johnson & Wales.
Yep, I remember
and
that.
it's all funded by SBA, and the funds go to URI, and now it's being coordinated through URI.
Okay. I just wondered if you've ever considered, utilizing some of the expertise that's available in these universities, maybe to host or sponsor either workshops or some kind of seminars on business things for the local guys.
I have not. There are a lot of seminars. Weekly I get notices from SBA about seminars.
So there's plenty of stuff out there, but the problem is people are busy
as does
money.
The chamber.
Yeah.
The only time we had a forum of that nature, we had the governor here a couple years ago, and after the abortive attempt that he happened to come in the middle of the tolls issue, we redid it. And every time we've had something like that, we've got maybe 6, 7 people, and it's usually the same people. We've had an outreach. Here's the people that are available for funding. Here's the people that are available for resources, for training and things. And so it hasn't drawn the crowd that you might think it would.
Well, okay, Bill, thanks. We're out of time. We usually are when we're talking to you. I appreciate you coming in today.
Glad to.
That's all for me, folks. We'll see you in the next edition of Portsmouth This Week.